Okay, the last thing we have to look at then in this unit is insulating a house. Okay, we'd like to keep our houses warm. The more heat energy is lost from the house, the more heat energy we have to put in just to keep it at the same temperature. So to save money, we want to minimize the amount of heat that is lost from the house. Now, the ways that heat can be lost from a house is through the roof. Because heat tends to rise, that's a pretty big component. Ways we can stop that is, you may have seen this if you have an attic. If you go up to your attic, you can have loft insulation, which can either be kind of put on the floorboards kind of here, or else you might see it between the beams, actually kind of in this region here. What it tends to be is fiberglass wool, or some other type of wool, and you will see for the majority of these, the reason that works so well is A, it's an insulator to begin with, but mainly because it traps air. And if you trap air, air's gas, so it's a brilliant insulator, and because it's trapped, it can't move, so it can't produce convection currents. Um, so loft insulation is where we put glass fiber, wool, um, in the loft area to stop this heat loss through the roof. Another way that heat can be lost is through the windows. Now, it can radiate out through the windows. One way we could stop that would be having curtains. Just closing the curtains can reduce this. We could just put something like tinfoil across our windows, but windows are there for a reason. They're let light in, so it's actually quite hard to stop this heat radiation. What we can do is we can stop heat conducting through the glass. Now, glass is quite a good insulator to begin with, but we can make it even better by using double or triple insulation. And that's just where, when we have a pane of glass, we don't just use one, we use two, and in between those panes of glass, there's then a layer of air. Triple glazing adds a third pane of glass, which means there's two layers of air, and it just means that it's harder for heat to conduct out through the window. Other ways heat can be lost is through the walls. If you just have one layer of bricks in a house, if you kind of look at it side on, it's quite easy for heat to pass out through them. So what we do is we have cavity walls, such as where you have one layer of bricks and then another layer of bricks, and in between them you have a layer of air, and air is quite a good insulator because it's a gas, and it makes it harder for that heat to travel through the wall. But we can make that even better, and if you see them building new homes, what they do is they drop these big foam kind of planks into that cavity, because it then contains trapped air, so the air can't even convect. It's a better form of insulation. If your house was built kind of in maybe the 70s, maybe 80s or so, it probably has a cavity but no insulation. So what they do sometimes is they drill a little hole through the outside wall, and then they fill this up with an expanding foam. So they kind of put a liquid in that expands and adds the foam to it and improves the insulation of the house. Makes it harder for the heat to conduct out through the walls. Other ways heat can escape is you can have a draft. There's any little gaps in doors, the heat can then get out. We can stop that by having draft excluders. So you might see at the bottom of a door, external door, you might have a little, kind of looks like a little brush at the bottom that just stops the air moving under that gap. Or sometimes you can kind of buy draft excluders that you just, sometimes they're made to look like little animals and stuff like that, but they are just something that will block that gap. Another way heat can escape is down to the ground. Not as big a factor as this one because heat tends to rise, but one way we can stop that is we can have carpets, because carpets are little fibers and they trap air. But also underneath them then these days you have a kind of foam underlay that contains kind of pockets of air as well. Makes it much harder for the heat to escape down through the house.